Alright guys, so I'm back with my original video product. This is the Orbit Yard Enforcer, and we had a viewer that requested an update and maybe see if I had any new opinions or anything like that. So I just want to answer some questions and elaborate on some things I've already mentioned. At the end of the questions, I'm just going to have a montage of sprinkler videos of all the different animals getting sprayed by my two yard enforcers. If you're looking for help on assembling or any other setup information, check out my first video. I'll leave a card up here in the corner, and you can check out that video. So this is my front yard enforcer, and I have it positioned with the motion sensor pointed straight down my flower bed, because the deer like to come in from the grass and eat my daylilies and these Asiatic lilies. Now the deer, they don't even like these lilies, but they will bite the heads right off of them. They're almost done for the season. Once all the orange falls off, they'll be done. But as you can see, my daylilies are thriving this year. The deer didn't have a chance to eat them to the ground, so I'm very happy with the outcome there. This sensor down here will pick up the deer all the way at that tree. If they're coming around the corner of the house, it'll set it off. One thing I did last year that I highly suggest you don't do is, if you are protecting your flower beds, don't have the sprinkler head pointed into your flower bed. What I did was I drowned these lilies and these lilies, and they almost died completely. The garden was so waterlogged that I thought they needed more water, and it turned out that they had too much water, because my sprinkler was, every time the deer would come by or a car would come by, I was soaking these plants and this whole flower bed. So that's why I have so few lilies right here. Most of them died as a result of too much watering. So this season I just have it pointed into the grass, so if it does pick up a deer, it doesn't spray them. They're just startled by the motion and the sound of the water, but it'll water my grass instead. You'll see there that it's only spraying into my yard. Now, I've had this unit this is my third summer, and I will say that at the beginning of last summer and at the beginning of this summer, the night mode didn't seem to want to work. It was going off in the morning and in the middle of the day. But replacing the batteries with brand new batteries, not the ones from last season, seemed to have cured that issue. So I would say that new batteries every season is a must. So because my mailman comes during the day and has to walk in front of this sprinkler to get to my mailbox, I don't want it on during the day, but I also want it to run in the early evening when it's still light out. So I can't set it to night mode if I want it to run then. So what I did was I bought a Wi-Fi garden timer. It's from Orbit, and I'll put a card up in the corner so you can check out mine. And what that timer does is it allows me to run it for 16 hours from 6 p.m. to 10 a.m., covering all the times when the deer like to come, but not having it on when the mailman comes. You'll find with hose timers that they only run in 4-hour increments, so I have to set up 4 separate 4-hour schedules to run from 6 p.m. to 10 a.m., but that covers me for all the times that the deer do come. So this is the sprinkler in my backyard, and I have it so that the motion sensor is pointing straight down my flower beds, because I've got a hosta here and a hosta past these 3 bushes here, and I want the sprinkler to defend the deer trying to eat my hostas. I have to put it out here in the grass, because if I put it in the flower bed right here, it'll get most of the area over here, but if they come around that corner of my house first, they can get to that far hosta before the sprinkler will detect them, and then I don't get any protection, and that one will get eaten. Now that I've used these for like 2.5 summers, I will say that I did buy this specifically for deer, and it does well with deer. It's great at sensing their large bodies. It will spray for smaller animals like skunks and raccoons and cats, possum. I've got plenty of videos of them getting sprayed by this, but the problem is that it doesn't detect them at a far distance. So if you're trying to protect a larger area from like skunks or raccoons from digging in your yard, You'll probably need a few of them to all point at that area and catch them coming and going. These bushes right here, the birds like to land in them, and my office is right behind these bushes, and the birds sit in there all day. But sometimes when they come flying in or flying away, I'll hear the sprinkler going off all day. So it does detect birds, the movement from them, but again, at what distance, I can't tell you for sure. Definitely mostly closer. Something else that will set them off is if a branch, like from this bush, it was overgrown, and so I trimmed them last week. They were hanging down, and when it was really windy one day, they were constantly bouncing, and this thing just kept going off over and over and over again. I recommended this sprinkler to a buddy of mine, and he put the sprinkler like out here in the yard facing his flower beds, and he had good luck with that because it could see a wider area. So that might be something to consider if you don't mind having a hose in the middle of your yard. The deer are definitely more afraid of the sound than the actual water. Most of the time they're running before they're even sprayed. I actually had one walk in front of the sprinkler last year, and I didn't have the water on, and just the click from the valve scared it away. I feel like some animals that are smarter, like cats, once they've been sprayed, they stay away from the area. Even some deer, I feel like they don't approach my beds anymore. They just walk on by. But I've got a video here of a cat that had been sprayed previously, and it walks towards the sprinkler, sees it, turns around, and heads the other direction. Last year I had the mailman cut through my backyard in front of this sprinkler. I had it positioned over here in the flower bed, but I've got video of him. He cut through my backyard because he knew my one in the front was there, and he didn't want to get sprayed by it. Don't forget to turn the water off when you're doing yard work. I've been sprayed far too many times just for walking through my yard, and that's my fault. I forget to turn it off, and it's a quick reminder. It feels good on a hot day, but on a cool day, you don't want to get wet. I see a lot of people asking questions about this piece that comes in the box and what it's for. It's very simple. This is for lowering the mounting height of the sensor. So you'll see right here that it kind of looks like that arm. You unscrew this screw, and then you attach this assembly to here. So this is the top, and then down here on the valve, you can slide this on. So when you have this attached to this piece, you can now have it lower for smaller animals. And you can position this in any angle. Just loosen this, turn it up, down, whichever way you want to point. But you want this pointed at whatever you're expecting to try and stop, like a deer or a raccoon. So I want to test the distances, and you'll see this knob on top has a minus sign and a plus sign over here, indicating that turning this will increase or decrease the distance. Now I have it on the shortest distance right now, and what this does is it controls this deflector here. Now it's hard to see in there. The water comes out right in here, and it goes through this screw, which you can twist and adjust going in and out of the water stream, and that'll make it spray more like a solid stream or like a mist. So you can adjust that any way you want. And then turning this knob on top causes this to go up and down, and so the water will come out, hit this deflector, and be diffused. But the higher that this goes up, by turning this knob, the further the water will shoot. It'll have a greater angle to go further. So what I did was I set up stakes in my yard, and they're all 5 feet apart, 5 feet from the sprinkler to that one, then 10, 15, all the way up to 35 feet. And the fence is 40 feet away. And we're gonna see how far we can get this to go. So again, this first one here is 5 feet, and the sprinkler is set to the closest distance. So I'm gonna turn it on always, give it some motion. Now that was easily hitting the 4th stake, so 20 feet away it was hitting, and that's on the shortest distance. So I'm going to turn the knob to the middle. I got it focused right there on the distance. That's the middle. I'm going to see how far it goes now. So I'm going to give it some more motion. And that very easily went an additional 10 feet, maybe even a little bit further. So we're already up to 30 feet. Now we're going to go to the furthest distance. And we'll give it some, I'm going to zoom in on the fence here a little bit and give it some motion. Now I don't know if it hit the fence or not, but it came darn close to striking. I don't think it hit the fence, but I'd be really shocked if it didn't hit past the 35-foot stake. Let's try one more time. Well, I don't see any water spots on my fence, so I'm going to say that it didn't hit the fence, but it came darn close. So I'm going to say at least 35 feet, maybe a little bit further. And if you have more water pressure than I do, maybe you get a little more distance than I am. Another question I see is, how long does it spray for? Well, over here it's got a duration knob, and I have it turned to the shortest duration. And I don't have a stopwatch on me, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to time it back later, and I'll add how long each duration is to the screen. So again, this is the knob all the way to the left, the shortest duration. I'm just going to turn it a little bit to the right. Okay, I'm going to give it a little bit more. And now this is going to be the longest duration. All right, I don't know what that little shake it does there is for, but it does that most times after it goes off. I also see people ask a lot of questions about, if it's always on, won't it use too much water? Well, it only uses the water that comes out of the sprinkler. It's like putting a nozzle on the end of your hose. Is your hose always using water? It doesn't use water until it detects motion, and then it goes off. So how much water is that? I mean, the longest duration is supposed to be 10 seconds, so however much water it can spray in 10 seconds, it's not going to be a drastic amount. Now, if you have a ton of motion, you know, it could end up using a lot of water, but, you know, that's up to you to decide. I don't have enough motion for it to warrant me worrying about how much water it's using. It does have, however, a 30-minute watering function, so if I turn it around here, if I turn it to always, and I press this button here, it's a 30-minute water cycle. It's just going to water whatever path you have it set up for 30 minutes. The last thing I want to mention that I see questions about are how to connect multiple sprinklers. So down here at the bottom, the garden hose comes in, and if you want to connect another yard enforcer sprinkler, you connect another garden hose, take this cap off, connect another garden hose there, run it to another yard enforcer, and you can do that for multiple. Now, they're not all going to go off at the same time. You know, if they all detect motion, they'll all try to go off at the same time, but if they all go off at the same time, you're going to have a reduction in water pressure. But this is so that you can have multiple daisy chained together, and if one goes off, it'll have water, and you don't have to run separate hoses all the way back to your faucet. But if you want to have one motion sensor, and you have two just regular garden sprinklers with this impact style head, if you want to have all this one and then maybe 2 other sprinklers on the other ends of your garden go off all at the same time, then you can connect garden hoses to either side here, and these 2 outputs are controlled by the same valve. So this detects motion, this valve opens, this sprinkler gets water, and these 2 outlets get water. So you can connect sprinklers that way if you want to. So I think that covers everything that I could think of, all the questions that I've been asked or the questions I've seen elsewhere, and I hope that helps you a little bit. Now if you stick around, I'm just going to throw together a bunch of videos that my security cameras have captured of these sprinklers in action. Enjoy, and thanks for watching.
Did you notice he has one of those sprinklers that when you go in front of it, it starts sprinkling? Yeah. So every time I walk up here, I'm thinking that thing might be on. You know? Yeah. I think it's probably to keep the deer away. You know?
I forgot about that.